Okay, so good to see you. We have a nice crowd this morning. Good morning to everyone. Let's begin our Sunday class with a little meditation and motivation. Sit comfortably with your spine straight, spine erect. Relax your body, relax your mind. Nothing else you have to think about right now than watching your respiration, first of all. So place your mindfulness on the breathing in front. If you're like me, you begin to watch the breathing and you realize your mind is trying to multitask, think of other things. I was just thinking of the blue corn. I don't know, I'm not sure what it's called, not chapati, some kind of an old round thing for breakfast that I put ghee on. So let go of those. If you have a tenacious tendency to still want to think about something else, you can, as you're breathing and watching the breath, you can imagine these four important points. Say, for instance, as you breathe in, think everything that's collected will end up being dispersed, like money, so forth. All meetings, everyone that you meet and you end up separating from eventually. Every everything that rises will eventually fall, not just apples thrown in the air, but also position in life. And every birth ends in death. Then bring your attention away from the breathing. You'll obviously continue to breathe, but just watch the contents of your mind at first, your mental consciousness. And recognize the spaciousness of the mind within which the thoughts and emotions, images, memories, plans, and so forth are arising. Turning your attention away from the objective thoughts and images and so forth to the nature of the consciousness within which they are arising, the nature of the consciousness that's understanding them, that's apprehending them. The nature of our mind offers no resistance to thoughts and emotions, virtuous states, negative states, offers no resistance to their arising. And also offers no resistance to their being dissolved back into the mind, disappearing. We can definitely develop all good qualities that we admire now. Love and compassion and patience and divine pride, courage, concentration, wisdom, all of these that we might admire can be cultivated and developed within the mind. And all of the faults of the mind that we have now and those that we don't notice, obstructions that prevent us from developing positive states of mind, can be removed. This nature of the mind is not known by the five senses, the physical senses, but by the sixth sense, the mental consciousness, the wisdom within it. This clear light nature of the mind has no color or shape, form. The mere lack of obstruction to the arisal or dispersal of contents of the mind. This is what's called our conventional Buddha potential. And as I've mentioned, each week we should recognize that our ability to recognize this and develop other good thoughts in our mind is due to the fact that we have a life of leisure and endowment that we are enjoying right now. We've met the Dharma, we have a human body, we have sound minds, some faith in the teachings, a community of like-minded individuals to practice with, sponsors and benefactors of the Dharma and help the centers. This opportunity is incredibly meaningful in that we can use it to develop positive qualities that we have never brought to completion before. We can eliminate all the faults from the mind. But the time we have left to live is short, relatively, even if you're young. What do we have left? Maybe 80 years more, 90 years more, probably less. If you're older like I, maybe a few months, a few years, a decade or so. Up till now, even when we've had the rare life of leisure and endowment in the past, we've wasted it on what the Buddha called meaningless activities, just the interest in the appearance of this lifetime, our reputation, relationships, wealth, power, pleasure of the senses. Think today, this morning, and the rest of the day, this week, this month, this year, the rest of my life, I'm going to try to recall the meaningfulness of this opportunity, start to let go of my compulsive interest in this life alone, and use the time we have remaining to cultivate the three principles of the path, especially renunciation that we've talked about, the mind of bodhicitta that we'll start talking about today, and the wisdom that realizes the ultimate nature of phenomena, emptiness. And recognizing that without knowing about these subjects, without hearing and thinking about them and meditating on them, there is no way to cultivate these thoughts. I think I'm going to listen, participate this morning in order to eventually, through these three insights, become an enlightened being, develop my full potential, become a real exemplar of a human being for the sake of others, all living beings. I'm going to listen to the teachings to eventually become enlightened, to become Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. And then relax your body, relax your mind, bring your attention back to the present. So, Any observations or questions about our meditation, or questions about something else we've talked about before, or some Dharma conundrum that you're still trying to work through? It's like not. Oh, wait, Susie. Okay, there we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable. Please, can you describe what divine pride is? You mentioned that in just then.
So,
thank you.
Generally, amongst the disturbing states of mind is what's called pride. Pride is a sense of inflated importance of yourself due to one or another factor. You might think, oh, I am a member of the so-and-so clan, or I am a Trump, or I'm an American. I am, I am wealthy. I am attractive. I am clever. I'm intelligent. Various things that one's mind can get a sense of fullness, that is a cause of many faults, disparaging others, feeling oneself as superior to others in these various ways. But there is a positive kind of confidence that we could call Dharma confidence, Dharma pride, but in the practice of esoteric Buddhism, the Vajrayana in Tantra, there is a sense of developing an identification with your eventual goal of becoming Buddha, maybe identifying yourself with becoming Tara, the sort of female aspect of the Buddha's emanation, or of Manjushri, the emanation of the Buddha's wisdom, Avalokiteshvara, the Tibetans say Chenrezi, the emanation of the Buddha's great compassion, and so forth. When you develop that identification, letting go of your ordinary sense of yourself and identify with your potential, that's what could be called Dharma pride or divine pride. Okay? Divine pride is more or less sort of a term that's used in Tantra, but we can say Dharma pride or Dharma confidence. Recognizing that you can become Buddha and that you're working for that goal. Does that help a little, Susie? Okay. Okay. So, and anytime you have a question or something comes up to your mind, you can either raise your hand if I see it. I think one thing that catches my eye more is if you can put that icon. There's like a icon of a raised hand that you can put on, then I can, with my distracted mind, I can see more clearly. So we're talking about a text written by the founder of the Gelugpa tradition, one of the four Tibetan traditions, not five, four Tibetan traditions, the Gelugpa, the Kargyu, Sakya, and Nyingma. You could say them in any order. Lama Tsong Khapa lived in the late 1300s, and from the mid 1300s, late 1300s, and wrote many texts. Founded this tradition that has been, sometimes in the Western books written about Tibetan Buddhism by people in the early part of the century, they called it the yellow hat tradition. Have you ever heard that? Charlene, you've heard of that? Did you say? Yeah. It's not really, it's never, and you know, the Tibetans never referred to it as a yellow hat tradition. Gelugpa comes from the word Gendemba, and actually it means the virtuous tradition. Lama Tsong Khapa's sort of revival of Buddhism at a certain point when it had kind of diminished in Tibet. The morality became slack and so forth. And because the monks wore these saffron robes, as all monks do, and they, during teaching ceremonies, sometimes the lamas, at certain points, they would wear a pundit's hat. I don't know if you can see very well the tanka behind me. At the very top, Lama Tsong Khapa up here has a hat on the top of his head, which is also yellow. So in distinction to some of the other traditions that had other color hats, the Western scholars around the turn of the century called it the yellow hat tradition. There's no Tibetan tradition of calling it that. So Lama Tsong Khapa wrote many texts on the stages of the path, many texts on fine points of philosophy, how to realize emptiness and develop all of these realizations. And at one point, he was encouraged by a direct vision of Manjushri, an emanation of all the Buddha's wisdom. He was encouraged by Manjushri to write a text on these three principles of the path, three principal realizations that we've talked about a little bit for the last couple of weeks. So basically they are a mind which has developed an antipathy to samsara, you know, recognizing the shortcomings of any rebirth that we can have in cyclic existence, has recognized that we can eliminate the need to be reborn in samsara, and we can achieve nirvana, a state where we have, you know, total calmness, not disturbed by anything any longer. That state of mind is called renunciation. It's not the sense of, you know, like sometimes say, you hear about some wealthy person disturbed by their son or daughter not following in the family business or doing something, and they say, I renounce you, you know, or something like that, you know, I give you up. It's not, that's here what we're giving up is, we want to give up is the thought that remains in cyclic existence. We want to renounce samsara by seeing its shortcomings, and through understanding the methods that can help you escape from cyclic existence, practice those. That's the first principle of the path. The second is the mind that we're going to talk about today, bodhicitta. Bodhi means enlightenment, awakening. Citta means mind. So it's a state of mind that goes beyond renunciation, not just wanting to escape from cyclic existence and maybe give up all the other living beings that are around, but to achieve full enlightenment in which you may have to remain much longer in cyclic existence with a mind fortified by wisdom and compassion, being in cyclic existence, emanating in cyclic, but not being of cyclic existence. That is, not having a samsaric mind. We're talking about that today again. And then the third principle of the path is the wisdom that realizes the ultimate nature of phenomena, the wisdom that cuts through all of our delusions, the wisdom of emptiness. So Lama Tsong Khapa wrote this text amongst his other texts on the stages of the path, with that sort of encouragement by Manjushri to do this. So I'm going to start with verse 6. And I'm not sure if did I introduce verse 6 last time? Is anyone keeping track?
No.
No, okay. So I finished verse 5, I think. So verse 5 was the end of the verses on renunciation. Verse 5 said, when through such a familiarity, developing antipathy for samsara, a renunciation of samsara, and a desire to achieve nirvana, when through such a familiarity, not even a moment's longing arises for the marvels of cyclic existence, wealth, fame, and being attractive to others, being loved by others, whatever marvels you think. And if day and night you constantly aspire to freedom from these bonds, you have developed the wish to leave cyclic existence. You have developed renunciation. So that was where we finished last time. So now, this chapter in this particular translation, which is very good, I recommend, you can find translations in other texts, the three principal aspects of the path by Geshe Sonam Rinchen, and translated by his female translator, Ruth Sonam. Very, very good translation. So this section is called the altruistic intention. So that's another way of kind of translating bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is the second of the three principles of the path. Bodhicitta is the wish to achieve enlightenment for the sake of others. So you can see the wish is translated here as intention. You're intending to do that, and you're intending to reach a state of enlightenment in which you can benefit all sentient beings. Open-hearted now, not just thinking of oneself. So that's kind of sense why it's translated as altruistic intention. I can't remember, a couple of years ago, maybe some of you are more savvy in politics. I remember there was some debate, maybe when Obama was president, he talked about the qualities he wanted to see in a certain cabinet post. He said he wanted to have people should have empathy, maybe not similar to altruism, right? Or empathy, maybe it's not even as strong as altruism. And that was kind of, even empathy was criticized by a lot of other politicians, say, oh no, that's, you should just, you shouldn't have empathy for others. People should be self-reliant and so forth and so on. Do you remember that, any of you? Matthew? Yeah. Again, maybe it doesn't resonate with all of you. So this verse starts out, since the wish for freedom, that is, since renunciation, if unaccompanied by the altruistic intention, if renunciation is not accompanied with bodhicitta, since a wish for freedom, if unaccompanied by the altruistic intention, will not act as a cause for the perfect happiness of unsurpassable enlightenment, the actual enlightenment of a Buddha, the wise, those who are wise, arouse the supreme intention to become enlightened. You understand the words, right? There's no words there that are understandable. David, are you raising your hand? I thought I saw you. Okay.
No, just adjusting my tablet.
Yeah, okay. So what does this mean? Those who develop a sense, a realization of renunciation, develop that thought, the intention to leave cyclic existence. Generally, what that means is that one wishes to find the peace of nirvana. You've heard that term, nirvana? It's the goal in the lesser vehicle, sometimes called the Hinayana, or generally today, the representation of the Hinayana today in the world is the Theravada school that's renowned in Sri Lanka, in Burma, in Thailand especially, and some other countries around there. The goal of escaping from samsara. We have been reborn in cyclic existence from beginningless time and endured every possible suffering. When you have enough of an understanding in a particular life to realize that every life that we've had has never brought satisfaction, and even indulging in pleasures, we eat up our virtuous karma, use it up, and are often reborn in incredibly, obviously suffering situations in the future. So wanting to get out of this treadmill, this racetrack of samsara, developing the intention to leave for oneself to get out. The Mahayana teachings of the Buddha, which the Buddha referred to as my great vehicle. He said, those who are intelligent, have an accumulation of merit also, should not be satisfied with my lesser vehicle, the Hinayana. His teachings, he taught, the Buddha did teach the Hinayana. It's not as though that is something negative, but those who have wisdom should see that you should follow my great vehicle, because a vehicle is something that you can transport people in, let's say. Okay. The great vehicle has space for everyone to lead them out of suffering into the highest goal, not just to the goal of nirvana, but to the goal of enlightenment. So, since the wish for freedom, if you don't also have bodhicitta, that wish for freedom, renunciation, is not sufficient to reach the goal of Buddhahood, of enlightenment. It can help to sever the ties to cyclic existence, renunciation alone. But if accompanied with bodhicitta, the wish to achieve enlightenment for the sake of others, born out of compassion, born out of empathy and love and compassion and so forth, that can eliminate deeper obstacles, deeper obstructions in the mind, and can go beyond the state of nirvana and lead one into the state of enlightenment, where your mind is not ceased. You're not just sort of passively there, but you can actively emanate in the world, actively benefit sentient beings, not just through teachings, not just through courageous acts in the world, standing up for freedom and working for others in the world, but knowing precisely how to lead sentient beings from life to life, all the way through the stages to achieve enlightenment. Some people are closer, some people are further at this time. So that is one of the things that we want to try to understand at the beginning, the benefits of bodhicitta. First of all, what bodhicitta is and what its benefits are, so that we develop an interest in it. If something doesn't have any benefits, someone just tells you about some new technique that you can spend thousands of dollars learning or many years to get accredited, but it has no benefits, you may not have any interest to do that, right? So you have to understand the benefits of bodhicitta. So the main benefit that's mentioned here in this verse is that bodhicitta, if you have a basis of renunciation, you realize the nature of cyclic existence is suffering, and that it's unworthy. It's not. You can't trust it. It's the nature of suffering. You'd like to get out of it, but if you in addition realize that all living beings are in the same plight as us, and start to open your heart to their situation also, and working not just for your own liberation, but working to get the state where you can liberate all of them at the same time in this great vehicle that has great benefit. Right? So when it says perfect happiness, for the just renunciation alone without bodhicitta will not act as a cause for the perfect happiness of unsurpassable enlightenment. There's a term that's in Sanskrit, it says samyak sam bodhi. Bodhi means enlightenment, samyak sam means unsurpassable, perfect unsurpassable enlightenment. So I'll read a little just from Geshe Sonam Rinpoche's commentary here. Perfect happiness refers to the freedom from all the fears and dangers of worldly existence, and those associated with a state of personal peace. So generally, if you develop renunciation and you develop and you reach the state of nirvana, you become an arhat, someone who's destroyed. Arhat, have you heard that term, arhat? Sort of, it's a person who's achieved nirvana. That's a state of mind, is called an arhat. The etymology of that, different people have different etymologies, but the general Buddhist etymology in Tibetan Buddhism is someone who's destroyed the foes of the delusions, the afflictions, anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, ignorance. All, there's said to be 84,000 different afflictions that are negative like this. Have you heard that before, the 84,000 delusions? Once in, when I was studying in Dharamsala in India at the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives, the teacher there, Geshe Nawan Darge, began a talk once with, he gave detailed explanation of the teaching. So he said, there are 84,000 delusions, and the first is ignorance. And I remember looking around, I think John Landau and some other people that are still students and teachers of Buddhism were there, and we're going, 84,000, I better get some more notebooks. This is going to be a long time. He said the first is ignorance, the second is attachment, third is anger. And then he said, all the rest of the 84,000 can be included, summarized in those three poisonous minds. So there was a palpable sigh in the room. Okay. When you expand that, we talk about the 6 root delusions, 6 root afflictions, and then 20 secondary delusions. And then those can be expanded in finer and finer detail of different variations of afflicted states of mind that cause us to lose our calm, cause us to lose our cool, that cause us, by generating those minds, to create negative karma and even eat up our virtuous karma that we've created in the past. So someone who's achieved nirvana, who's become an arhat, a foe destroyer, has destroyed those afflictive states of mind, but they haven't reached the end goal of enlightenment. They've removed the fear of cyclic existence. They know that they will no longer be reborn in cyclic existence. They reach a state of incredible calm and bliss. But here it refers to 2 things, 2 kinds of fears. It says, perfect happiness refers to freedom from all the fears and dangers of worldly existence, of samsara, as well as those associated with a state of personal peace. Personal peace here means nirvana. So you might say the arhats, they have no fear of nirvana. They're happy to enter into nirvana, into personal peace, leaving everyone else in cyclic existence, like leaving the family. The family's in dire straits, and you get a chance to get a job on Wall Street, and you take it, right? Leave everyone behind. So once you developed an understanding of bodhicitta, and you've as you're deciding how to practice Buddhism, if you realize that temptation to achieve nirvana for your own self, what's called personal freedom, individual freedom, nirvana, that is a state that's so captivating that it can be, that you start to develop a fear of that, being captivated by that sense of personal freedom. Once you realize the benefits of developing bodhicitta, working for the benefit of all sentient beings. So in many of the Buddhist philosophical texts, the Buddha talked about the fears of samsara and nirvana, or the fears of cyclic existence and personal peace. So the Hinayana Arhats, those who are working for their own liberation, have no fear of nirvana, but the bodhisattvas, or the proto-bodhisattvas, that is to say, those who would like to become a bodhisattva and work for enlightenment, they have a fear of falling into that captivating, that temptation of working for their own benefit alone. Does that make sense? That's what's meant here by the fears and dangers of worldly existence, as well as those associated with a state of personal peace. So the perfect happiness, therefore, means one is free of those two fears. Just the wish for freedom, renunciation, characterizes the practice of the intermediate level. But when this is combined with the altruistic intention, it becomes a path uniting the intermediate and highest levels of practice. So what does that mean? When we talk about the practice of Buddhism in the stages of the path, one of the distinctions that the great teacher that came to Tibet, Atisha, exemplified, he clarified very clearly, was that there were essentially 3 stages of practice. The beginning stage of practice is one in which you would like to find a better life in the future. So that emphasizes creating virtuous karma, like the great benefactors at the time of the Buddha that offered the Buddha the various groves in India where he could set up monasteries for his monks. They offered meals to the monastic community, many kinds of things like this. They engaged in various acts of charity. Their main goal was to create karma, to have incredibly delicious, let's say, very, very enjoyable lifetimes in the future. So that karma could even actually bring about wealth and fame and fortune and power in future lifetimes. That's called the initial stage of practice. I think, in a certain sense, that's a little bit like the Judeo-Christian tradition, or the Abrahamic tradition. Doing good now, maybe that supposedly pleases the Godhead, God, so that you will be reborn in a or you will exist, whether they say reborn or not. When you die, you will go to heaven, right? I'm not so sure of the Judaic tradition. I think they don't talk so much about heaven. So that's the initial stage of practice. The intermediate stage of practice is what we've been talking about from the start. That is seeing that even if you were born in the upper realms in the future, born as a human, as a king or queen, with glory and power and all the things you want, pleasures, all of that is fleeting. All of that will eventually be lost. And that afterwards, you may again be reborn in worse states than we are now. So the intermediate state of practice, which is the main practice is renunciation, wants to escape from cyclic existence completely. So the first stage, initial stage, wants to find better states in cyclic existence, in samsara in the future. The intermediate state wants to escape from cyclic existence completely, even to be born as a god, as a powerful human, as the richest person in the world. All of those are transitory, not satisfying, not bringing real pleasure, and they are to be renounced. So the highest stage of practice, so the beginning, the intermediate, and the higher state of practice realizes even if you were to achieve nirvana for yourself, you may remain, at the time of death, your mind will no longer take rebirth in cyclic existence, but it will still exist. And it will exist in a very blissful state of peace. Your mind is meditating on emptiness and will remain for eons in that blissful state until at a certain point, maybe many eons from now, the arhat, the person who's entered into nirvana, their meditative concentration begins to diminish, and they will be awakened by the Buddhas and informed that they have not, and they'll be told, informed that they have not achieved the highest goal of enlightenment. And at that point, after many eons in nirvana, they will again take rebirth in cyclic existence, this time not due to their uncontrolled karma, but through wish. They will make prayers to ripen karmic seeds in their mind to again take rebirth in cyclic existence and work for the benefit of sentient beings to become a bodhisattva and achieve enlightenment eventually. Does it make sense? So far, it makes sense? So one way of understanding is it's like in a forest, there may be a stream. At a certain point, the stream forks, becomes two other streams, or a river branches off into two. So the person who first achieves liberation is like crossing the river at a point when it's already branched. So first they cross the river into the region in the middle there where they're in nirvana. They remain in that for a long period of time. And then they cross eventually they will cross the other branch of the stream into the state of enlightenment. I wish I had a chalkboard behind me or a whiteboard behind me. Does it make sense? Have you ever done that in the woods when you're out for a walk? You know that at a certain point, if you cross the stream, you haven't crossed it when it's just one time. You have to eventually cross it another branch of it later. I remember there were some places in Italy when I used to go out for walks like that. So you'd have to be wise to know where to cross. So the person who enters into the Mahayana is an individual who's recognized the danger, the captivation of crossing that smaller stream into nirvana, that smaller branch. So they recognize that from the beginning, they want to cross it just once to go from our present existence into the state of enlightenment. And that the way to do that is to develop this mind of bodhicitta. Okay? So, just as the wish for freedom characterizes the practice of the intermediate level, remember the initial level was just the wish for higher rebirth. The intermediate level was the wish for freedom from cyclic existence. But when this is combined with the altruistic intention, that means bodhicitta, it becomes a path uniting the intermediate and highest levels of practice. So what does it mean, uniting? In order to work for enlightenment for the sake of others, in order to develop this mind of bodhicitta, precious mind, one has to have an appreciation for the suffering of cyclic existence through your own investigation from your own point of view, how all of the pleasures of cyclic existence are not ultimately satisfying. You know, you in a sense, you might say they're satisfying at that time, but you'll never quench the thirst for those marvels and pleasures again, by experiencing them even multiple times. They're all fleeting, they're not reliable, and the pursuit of those marvels of cyclic existence, fame and fortune and so forth, creates causes for you to engage in negative activities, to prolong that state in cyclic existence. I'll just read a little bit more. Though hearer and solitary realizer arhats, here called foe destroyers, have freed themselves from the cycle of involuntary birth and death, and they possess qualities as great and precious as a mountain of gold. They're, from our point of view, someone who's achieved nirvana is a real saint. You know, they have incredible qualities, peace of mind, calm, and so forth, pleasure, dharma, happiness. They cannot attain complete enlightenment because they lack the altruistic intention. So what is it that prevents us from achieving, prevents them and us achieving the altruistic intention? It's a particular state of mind we call the self-cherishing attitude. Have you heard that before, self-cherishing? Okay, a couple people are nodding. Matthew, have you heard of self-cherishing attitude? Matt Butkowski, you have? Anyone who hasn't heard? Basically, the self-cherishing attitude is a state of mind that considers one's own happiness and well-being as paramount, as most important. Just as we talk about my cherished belongings, you know, maybe you have a Ming vase or your I don't know, your Subaru or your Cadillac or your prized possession, that which you cherish very deeply. Also, sometimes we cherish others. We cherish our children or our loved ones. Maybe you cherish the so-called American dream or your country, or that which you hold as dear. That's the meaning of cherishing. Self-cherishing is a state of mind that holds yourself and those that are immediately integral to your own happiness, your family and friends, maybe in some cases, in patriotic mind, your country and so forth, holding them as dear, most dear. So that even if you talk about from a sort of like American point of view, patriotic point of view, those people are patriots, they have altruism, they work for your country. Still, they're happy to kill the enemy for the sake of their own country, right? Or, your own community, to disparage those who are coming to our country as immigrants or something like that, that they're not as worthy, they're not part of your own self-image, your self-identity. So the self-cherishing attitude, sometimes called self-cherishing thought, is an imprint in our mind from this attitude from numberless lives in the past, working for our own benefit. So with that state of mind, You can have renunciation. You can want to escape from cyclic existence, but you'll want to do it for yourself alone, for the most, Still, the arhats rationalize that, those who are working on the Hinayana path, they say, if I get out of cyclic existence, there won't be any danger of me harming others in the future. There won't be any danger of other people creating negative karma with respect to me. So it makes samsara a little bit better if I escape, right? Does that make sense? That's kind of a rationale. They have great compassion from their point of view. They see other people as suffering, but they don't feel a compulsion to eliminate that suffering themselves by remaining in cyclic existence and working for them. So self-cherishing attitude, it is the imprint of something more fundamental that we call self-grasping. So those of you, this is just kind of our Sunday go-to-meeting class. So it's not a big philosophical class, but maybe worth mentioning this distinction. Have you heard of self-grasping before? A couple of people? Victor, you have your eye down, so I can't tell, maybe on purpose. Maybe you're twittering. Oh, you're making notes. So Victor, have you heard of self-grasping before?
Yes, I think it's almost like self-cherishing, or maybe.
Okay, good. So there's a distinction, though, very important distinction. Self-grasping is what we call a form of ignorance. Self-grasping is a mind that senses within our mind a self, something that exists really there, like me. Like if I say, Victor, you're a thief. We might be. It's not as though you think your body is a thief. You don't think my mind is a thief. You think I, Victor, or better example, you're not a thief. I, George, am a thief. You might feel offended. It's as though there's some kind of self that exists. It's related with the body and mind, but is not identical to the body and mind. When the Buddha's special insight of emptiness was explained, he mainly referred to it at the beginning as selflessness or no self. Sometimes people who write about Buddhism talk about no self. There is no self. Actually, there is a self conventionally. Anna, there is a self of Anna, there's a self of Caroline, there's a self of Ida, but that kind of self is very, very subtle. It's just the name we give to Anna, to that combination of parts, her five aggregates. You might say, I'm more than a combination of parts. I exist here somewhere. That misapprehension that there is a findable self is called self-grasping. It's you could call it grasping. You could call it what's the word? In a parliamentary debate, if there's a resolution that's proposed and you assent to that, it means that you go along. You're not arguing against it. It's not like you're wholly, totally propounding that position, but you go along with it. So in our mind, there's a sense of self that appears, and an ignorance in our mind, basic kind of ignorance that you could say grasps to that or assents to that. So it goes along with that. It doesn't see any fault with that I that seems to be there. And as a result of that acceptance or assent to the appearance of the I, all of the other delusions can arise. Anger can arise. attachment easily arises, ignorant, say, not caring about others, jealousy, pride, low self-esteem. All of these kinds of delusions can arise because of that self-grasping. That's the fundamental enemy of both liberation from cyclic existence and to achieving enlightenment. But because of that imprint in our mind of self-grasping from beginningless time and cyclic existence, there is an imprint of that called self-cherishing. Once we believe in the I, we go along with that sense of I, there's a thought to take care of it, to cherish it. That's most important, my happiness. That's called the self-cherishing attitude. So it's different than self-grasping. The Hinayana Arhats, those who achieve nirvana, liberation from cyclic existence, they have eliminated the self-grasping, but they haven't eliminated the self-cherishing from the mind. Are we following? Well, anyone have any qualms, doubts? Leah, you following? Okay. Nancy? Jamie? I'm just checking. Christopher, and I assume Christopher is the guy. Yeah. Who's the lady?
My wife, Dawn.
Dawn. Okay, Christopher and Dawn. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Venerable?
Yes.
This is Aida. So self-grasping is the imprint, not the self-cherishing, or is it the other way around?
Both of them are imprinted upon our mind. Both of them have existed in our mind streams since beginningless time. Self-grasping is a basic kind of ignorance. Self-cherishing has arisen because of that belief in an I over numberless lifetimes. It's also the imprint of having developed it over numberless lifetimes, but you could say it's specifically the imprint of self-grasping. First, the self-grasping, the belief, assent into believing that there is an I is there. And once you believe in the I, a inherently existent I, you have the tendency of cherishing it like your precious car, your precious computer, your precious children and friends and loved ones. You hold it most dear. That's called a self-cherishing attitude. If you could eliminate self-grasping from the mind, the reason that self-cherishing is called an imprint, even if you eliminate self-grasping from the mind, you become an arhat. You've eliminated all the delusions. There's still an imprint of that self-grasping. The tendency to still work for your own benefit, even though there's no inherently existent self. Example, sometimes if you have, I notice this, sometimes I love to have garlic in my salads. And sometimes when I get lazy, I don't buy a bulb of garlic. I buy a little jar that has garlic chopped up. Does any of you do that? Yeah. So once you've emptied that jar of the garlic at the end of whatever days or weeks it takes to empty it, I wash it out. I think, oh, this would be nice. This is a nice size to store some things in. Maybe I can store, the last cup of espresso coffee that I don't want to drink now, that I'll drink tomorrow. But if you smell inside the jar, it has the imprint of that garlic smell. No matter how many times I've washed it out with Dawn or whatever, I can't get that out. I've put in vinegar and baking soda. Maybe some of you have a trick how to get out that garlic smell. That's like the imprint. Even you've taken out the self-grasping from the mind, there still is a smell of that, the imprint of that, embedded in our consciousness as a result of the self-grasping. Make sense?
Yes, thank you. It's clear now.
Okay, that's good. So how does this, one example that my teacher Lama Yeshe, who's the founder of the FPMT, used to give when talking about bodhicitta. Imagine being at a cocktail party. I'm not sure any of you go to cocktail, maybe some kind of fest, maybe a pool party when there are all these beautiful people around, your friends, there's, some, either intoxicating drinks or other substances, but it's sort of a gala affair. You're having a great time, and someone brings you the telephone and says, it's a phone call for you. And you hold the phone to your ear and you find out it's your mother. Your mother's calling to tell you that her house is on fire. She's trapped inside. Please come and help. And you look around, you see all these beautiful people, maybe some people sitting next to you, embracing you, you're intoxicated in pleasure and so forth. And you think, and you press the off button, or you say later, you press the button. Lama said that's kind of like the tendency of self-cherishing, not going out of one's way to overcome one's own pleasure, give up one's own pleasure for the sake of others, and still wanting to perpetuate one's own happiness, maybe working for one's own personal nirvana. That state of mind prevents you from doing that. Earlier, we said that the mind of renunciation is one that thinks, I've got to get out of cyclic existence, right? I remember most of you are younger than I, but some of you may remember there was a song, We Gotta Get Out of This Place. What was that? I can't remember who the band was. Nancy, you're nodding your head. Who
was that the Stones?
I was thinking it was the Stones. Maybe it was the Stones. There's some other ones. We've got to get out of this place. That to me is more the Mahayana attitude. The Hinayana attitude is, I've got to get out of this place. If it's the last thing I ever do. The Mahayana attitude is more, we've got to get out of this place. Sort of one's attitude is greater, encompassing all living beings. And so that seeing myself getting out of this place is a fearful proposition because it would prevent me from being able to get us all out of this place. To get us all out of this place would mean I could achieve the state of enlightenment from which perspective I can lead sentient beings through however number of lives it takes, lead them into the path of Dharma, developing renunciation, bodhicitta, wisdom, to escape, so that they could not only escape from cyclic existence, but so that they could be positioned in the state of enlightenment themselves. In the Hinayana, in the Theravada, let's say today, generally it's accepted in their philosophical view that it's only the very, very rare individual who works for enlightenment, such as the founder of the present teaching in the Dharma in the world, Shakyamuni Buddha, who lived some 2,500 years ago, right? He was born in the border of area between present-day India and Nepal, actually in Nepal a little bit. Sometimes some people might think he's the only person who ever became Buddha, but in the past, eons and eons, there have been numberless individuals who achieved the state of enlightenment, Buddhahood, and who was said, turned the wheel of Dharma in the world, taught other living beings these basic teachings, how to escape from cyclic existence and how to achieve enlightenment. So let me just read, this is a nice way to bring up some other thoughts here about this. The understanding of reality alone is not powerful enough to overcome the obstructions to knowledge of all phenomena. It can do so only when it is combined with skillful means. So what is that talking about? The person who wants to achieve nirvana and liberation from cyclic existence, freedom from cyclic existence, become arhats, their tool to do that is a realization, meditation on selflessness, that there is no self here, the way that the mind is believing, grasping to, assenting to. Recognizing that there's no self, meditating on that again and again and having a direct realization of that, a naked, bare perception of that with the mental consciousness. It's called meditation on emptiness. Meditation on selflessness also. The two are synonymous from the highest point of view. When you have that kind of realization, all of the other delusions in your mind have no foothold. Anger will be eliminated, attachment, jealousy, pride, low self-esteem, depression, all of the fears of the world will be eliminated in your mind. But that realization, even with renunciation and realization of emptiness, remember the three principles, renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness. If you take the first and the last in combination, you can achieve nirvana. But even with that realization of emptiness, you cannot achieve enlightenment. You can't remove from your mind the subtlemost obstructions that prevent you from achieving enlightenment. They're called the obstructions to omniscience. They're more subtle than the delusions. The only way that you can eliminate them is to have the realization of emptiness combined with bodhicitta. Okay? Make sense? Who has a doubt? Unclarity. Larry, good.
I have a question. Does the self have parts?
Does the what?
Does the self have parts?
Does the self have parts? Which self are you referring to?
The self that you're talking about.
Well,
self
I'm talking about two kinds of self. So when we talk about the self, I said earlier, sometimes people think when the Buddha said there is no self, or he talked about selflessness, selflessness means the state of having no self, right? It almost sounds like there is no self. But as I mentioned, there is a conventionally existent self. There is a Larry. Who is Larry? Well, Larry is the guy, I'm not sure. Where are you, Larry? In New Mexico?
Delaware.
Delaware. Oh, you're Delaware. So Larry is that guy in Delaware, and say, well, there's a lot of Larrys in Delaware. Which one are you talking about? Oh, the one in, what town are you? Newark. So it's a Larry in Newark. Oh, there's many Larrys in Newark. Which one? Oh, it's the one that lives at this address. And you go to that address and you say, where's Larry? And they say, he's in his meditation room. You go to the meditation room and you say, where is Larry? And they point to you. That is what's called identification of the conventionally existent Larry. But if you're not satisfied with that and you say, well, where is Larry? Is Larry his mind? Is Larry his body? Is it something separate from his body and mind? That kind of investigation is what's called ultimate analysis. trying to find the real Larry. That Larry doesn't exist at all. The conventionally existent Larry is just a name that I give to your combination of parts. So you could say the conventionally existent Larry has parts. He has a body, he has a mind, he has 5 aggregates and so forth. The inherently existent Larry doesn't exist at all, the one that we grasp to, that it seems to be somewhere findable there. When you don't think about it, we grasp to our own self-identity and we grasp to the self-identity of others. We think, oh, Larry, as though there's some real findable thing there. Ordinarily, in the world, when you're not involved in afflictive states of mind, not involved with delusions, there can be kind of a recognition of just the conventionally existent Larry. Oh, that's Larry. But whenever our love for Larry, our affection for Larry, our desire for Larry, or our anger to Larry, or our jealousy of Larry arise, that is fueled by a sense of a findable Larry somehow within his parts. Okay. Does that help a little?
It helps a little, yeah.
Okay. So when we talk about entering into the desire to develop bodhicitta, we need to understand its benefits. So one of the major benefits, the most important benefit, is that having bodhicitta will allow us to achieve enlightenment. Well, in more practical sense, if you develop even an approximation of bodhicitta, a mind that wishes to achieve our highest state, so that we can really benefit sentient beings out of compassion for them, that state of mind accumulates incredible store of virtuous karma that can help with all other realizations. That's why the bodhisattvas, as they practice from life to life, maybe many, many eons, remaining in cyclic existence for the sake of others, it's said, the Buddha said, that bodhisattvas go from joy to joy. They become more and more happy, more and more blissful because of the incredible accumulation of virtuous karma. And one of the most powerful ways to purify negative karma is to generate the mind of bodhicitta. So talking about these kind of benefits of bodhicitta, besides the fact that it ultimately will allow you to achieve enlightenment, even now it brings happiness to your mind. Say, for instance, a person who's self-centered, self-cherishing to an extreme, whatever kind of problem they have or we have, the more we dwell on our own problem, the bigger it seems to us, the more depressed we become. If you start to think of others, even now as a practical sense, even not talking about developing bodhicitta yet, even thinking about others, not centering only on your own problems, someone abused you or you lost your money or whatever, that your own problem becomes insignificant when you start to think of the suffering of others. It's a very, very practical way of starting to approach the practice of bodhicitta. I mentioned at the beginning, before a lot of you were here, I wanted to mention this text written by a famous Lama who died not so long ago, I think in the 70s. His name was Kunu Lama Rinpoche. Kunu is a region, is the name of the people from a certain region in northwest India called Kinnar. Have any of you been to India? Couple. So sort of up in the northwest past Dharamsala where the Tibetans live, there's a region called Kinnar, and most of the people there are called Kunu. So he's called Kunu Lama Rinpoche because he was born in that region, maybe in the end of the 1800s, just before the 1900s. He was born to a religious family, Buddhist family. Most of them were practicing Tibetan Buddhists. And he became, over his lifetime, probably someone who was in many, many lifetimes in the past, had practiced Buddhism and had practiced the Mahayana. Maybe he was already a bodhisattva at that time, but he particularly practiced bodhicitta all during his lifetime. He was the individual who taught the Dalai Lama the Bodhisattva Charya Avatara, the entry into the Bodhisattva's ways. I'm not sure how, you've probably encountered the name of that text before, if not the teachings of it. I don't know how it was translated. There are many different translations of the title. Sometimes people just refer to it as the Bodhisattva's Handbook. It was written by a great Indian saint called Shantideva. We'll talk sometime about Shantideva in another context. So that text is considered to be one of the great sources, practical sources of how to develop bodhicitta. And the Dalai Lama credits Kunu Lama Rinpoche as being his teacher of that text. Someone who looked very, very simple. He wore just a simple white cloth on his body, like the Indian sadhus do, the ones on the Ganges River, where he lived for some years amongst them, always practicing bodhicitta. He wrote a text at one point that was called Praises to Bodhicitta. I can't remember, 354 praises to bodhicitta, like these calendars you have today. You can get, a thought for the day. I think he proposed to have that, one thought a day. It was translated some years ago by one of our dear friends, Buddhist scholar, Gareth Sparham. And his translation is called Vast as the Heavens, Deep as the Sea, Verses in Praise of Bodhicitta. I think Matt said that he was putting a link to that somewhere. Where was it, Matt? In the chat?
Yes, it's at a link to the book on Amazon. I put in the Amazon chat.
If you're clever, you can find it. You may be able to find a PDF of it on the web. So I'm gonna mention a couple of those verses in the coming weeks in praises of bodhicitta. So let me start with a couple of verses. Gazing with undivided faith at the Buddha, their Dharma, and their followers, the Sangha, I seek refuge and pray to them. So oftentimes at the beginning of texts, as in our text, there is some kind of generation of virtuous karma by praising the Buddhas and so forth. Second verse, the Lord who seeks to help, that means the Buddha. Here the Lord is kind of a translation of the Indian word Bhagavan, which someone who's achieved enlightenment. The Lord who seeks to help, who originates from the full moon of bodhicitta, is the guru of the world. In samsara, there is really no other to be found. So the here it says the Buddhas originate from the full moon, and it refers to that as bodhicitta. So bodhicitta is like a state of mind that cools one even before you've achieved any of these great states, even aspiring to benefit others like this, to achieve enlightenment for their benefit. Not even engaging in the practices yet, just aspiring to that state creates so much virtuous karma. Example is given often. In the world, if you want to eliminate the suffering of one kind of ailment in the world, like say AIDS or COVID infection or headaches or whatever, cancer, with an intention of helping other sentient beings, just to eliminate one suffering from them, you accumulate an immense amount of virtuous karma. If beyond that, you want to eliminate from all living beings, not just the people on earth, the humans or something, one particular ailment, you want to eliminate from all sentient beings every single suffering and set them in the state of ultimate bliss, the amount of merit that creates is incomparable. Just a little story about Kunu Lama Rinpoche. When the Dalai Lama taught the Kala Chakra in India for the first time, might have been in the 50s, I think, he taught at Bodh Gaya. And as he was coming, there were hundreds of thousands of Tibetans there. As he was coming to an area where he would sit up on a platform, kind of a stage where there were loudspeakers, he saw in the crowd Kunu Lama Rinpoche, who had taught him the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. Kunu Lama Rinpoche was not known to the other Tibetans at that time. There are other Tibetan lamas, with brocade robes or something like this, and entourages. And Kunu Lama Rinpoche was just in this white dhoti, they say in India, this white cloth that they wear on the bottom and over their shoulders. And he just looked very emaciated, didn't have a retinue around him. The Dalai Lama stopped. He took off his robe, as we do when we make prostrations, put over his shoulders. And in the dirt right there, he stopped and made prostrations, 3 prostrations to Kunu Lama Rinpoche. And all of the other Tibetans were, whoa, who is this? The Dalai Lama is making prostrations to, because the Kunu Lama Rinpoche had taught the Dalai Lama this incredible text, the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, how to develop bodhicitta. Once, the first course I was at Kopan in 1974, Kunu Lama Rinpoche was visiting down the hill from Kopan. He was visiting Bodhanath, and he was giving a talk that afternoon. Some of the older students went down to hear that talk with Lama Yeshe. We new students weren't invited down. It was a very limited kind of thing. And afterwards, when they came back, I remember Lama Yeshe saying, kind of like with a twinkle in his eyes, he said, "He reminds me very much of Jesus Christ." And Lama had always, during Christmas at Kopan, Lama had always had a special Christmas puja, the Avalokiteshvara puja, the Buddha of compassion, to celebrate Christ's teachings and his life and so forth. So Lama had a great appreciation of the virtue of Christ, and sometimes referred to him as a bodhisattva. Christ is a bodhisattva. And so when Lama said, kind of like with a twinkle in his eye, he said, "He reminds me very much of Jesus Christ," I often wondered, from a Buddhist perspective, when Christ died, from a Buddhist perspective, he would be, if he was a bodhisattva, he would be born again. He would be in, he would have, further rebirths in cyclic existence. Maybe Lama was saying that Kuna Lama Rinpoche was present incarnation of Jesus Christ. So anyway, this is just kind of an aside. So let me just read that verse again, and we will stop here. We've reached our class time. So we're on verse number 6 in the text. Since the wish for freedom, the thought of renunciation, if unaccompanied by the altruistic intention of bodhicitta, will not act as a cause for the perfect happiness of unsurpassable enlightenment, the wise, those who are, sage and wise, arouse the supreme intention to become enlightened. So we'll continue next time. Any thoughts, questions before we end? Clarifications, corrections, questions? Christopher and Dawn, you okay? Matthew? You okay? Okay. So I can't see Lynn, Alexis, Manuel, Lisa, or Anne Coughlin, but I assume they would say something. So let's finish up with a short dedication. As I've mentioned in other talks, 3 important times: the beginning, the middle, and the end. We want to try to dedicate the virtuous karma that we've created so that it is not simply used up in some future meaningless pleasure in cyclic existence, but that it is dedicated so that it will remain and bring fruits all the way to the state of enlightenment. So, due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. It's a general dedication, and particularly for this precious mind that we've talked about today, the bodhicitta. Due to these merits, may the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen in our mind stream, may it arise and grow, and may that which has arisen, whatever similarity to bodhicitta that we have already developed, may it not diminish, but increase more and more. And then some long life prayers. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serves as a bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the 3 jewels, the savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. And for the Dalai Lama, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, the source of every single benefit and happiness in the world, the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, may your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. It's not as the verse is translated in English, I beseech. It's not like asking the Dalai Lama that his wishes be fulfilled. It's just our prayer that they be fulfilled. Venerable One, Tenzin Osel, Lama Osel, to you whose kindness exceeds that of all the conquerors, for those wanderers in far-off places, especially the West. Wanderers here means migrating beings like ourselves, mindful of your living concern for us, your loving concern for us, in intentionally descending again into a family of a far distant land, we make this request. O Lama, please, please live long. And then for Geshe Sherab, who's recovering at Kopan Monastery from COVID and some other complications. Beloved teacher, leading your students toward wisdom and compassion, explaining through exacting discernment the steps of the graduated path, stages to enlightenment. You are the unequaled guide. Please live a long and stable life. So thank you. I'll look forward to being with you again next Sunday, and have a good week.
Thank you, Venerable George.